Hey everybody, Kim here with Lead Generation Source, and in this video we're going to talk about why Tailwind. So a quick overview of Tailwind for those of you who have not seen our videos. And Tailwind's basic function is a pin scheduling tool on Pinterest or Instagram. Now we're going to focus on Pinterest for this, but there is also an Instagram element that you can use as well. So Tailwind is, as a pin scheduling tool, it lets you basically queue repins, pins from sites, and custom pins, so all different types of pins, into a schedule that's been optimized by historical activity on your account. Now don't let that scare you. All that means is that Tailwind figures out when the best time is to pin and then schedules your pins for that. Right, so another thing you get with Tailwind is access to analytics. Now there are multiple versions, and the basic version has basic analytics, but even that level is better than the Pinterest analytics you get. Way better. I can't even believe how little Pinterest gives you on analytics. Something else that you can do with Tailwind is you can create board lists to schedule pinning into boards easily. Now this includes group boards. We'll talk more about that. More recent addition to Tailwind is Tailwind Tribes, and you'll also get access to Tailwind Tribes when you use Tailwind. And this is similar to a like-for-like program, except it's legal. And again, we'll talk more about all of these in just a minute. So the first and main feature of Tailwind is the capability to spread out your pinning into a schedule. So without Tailwind, you end up pinning whenever you log in. So if that's like 2 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be pinning at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that may not match the times your audience logs onto Pinterest. So if you pin at 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever the algorithm is, by the time they're logging in at 5 p.m. or 2 p.m., whenever it is, they may not be able to see your pins anymore because whatever the algorithm is has kind of like petered out. Right? Now, nobody knows what the Pinterest algorithm is, so we just know that there are times that are better to pin than others based on your own reach on your account. So Tailwind helps you figure that out and matches up your pinning times with your audience through a schedule. And then Tailwind lets you spread out your pinning over those optimal times throughout the day when people are more likely to interact with your pins. So if you normally log in once a day and pin 30 pins, your reach is going to be very minimal because you're going to do 30 pins all at once, and maybe one might see a couple hundred, one or two might see none. Right? You might not have any views on several of them. In fact, that's what I ran into when I was doing it manually. So Tailwind, on the other hand, lets you maximize your reach by scheduling those pins to post throughout the day when the people are actually on and engaging with the content. Another key feature of Tailwind, which I guess is not really a feature, but much more of a benefit, is that you get to avoid issues with pinning too often. Now, I will say this is also from personal experience. So most people trying to pin regularly to build up their reach end up pinning like 100 pins within a short period of time, like an hour, maybe 2 hours. And what ends up happening is that, let's say they do it one day and then they skip a couple days and then they do it again, that flags Pinterest. And so depending on what Pinterest decides and what their algorithm, whatever they have programmed in there, many people have reported that pinning too much in a short period of time has caused Pinterest to freeze the account, so usually it's through a suspension, or they even shut it down completely in some cases, and because Pinterest will consider it spamming. Now, you may not be spamming and you may be doing everything that you think correct, but because you're not spreading it out throughout the day, Pinterest feels like you're spamming. So that's something that they don't like, and you can avoid that issue using Tailwind. You can schedule content for days. I mean, you can literally have days of content out. You can even have longer. When you are trying to log in at the right time every day and pin content is very time consuming. So instead, with Tailwind, you can queue up pins to post over the next several days or even longer. And this is whether you're repinning, you're pinning content from your own sites, or you're creating unique pins. No matter what it is, you can schedule pins to go to different boards, to group boards, etc. throughout the day to optimize when they can get in front of people. But you can also schedule it for quite a ways out. There's no maximum time frame. I mean, you can do as many as you want. I've made it out to a week, but I try not to go too far, so I'm still pinning and sharing content that is current. Right? I don't want to be pinning something about, I don't know, if I'm doing spring stuff right now, I don't want to schedule stuff out all the way through Christmas and be like, oh, well, we're talking about spring during Christmas. Right? It wouldn't be as effective. So instead, what I want to do is, go ahead and schedule my pins. I usually try to keep it within a week or less, and then go back in every couple days and make sure I add more. So being able to schedule for a few days out helps to keep the Pinterest momentum, especially if you have kind of a chaotic schedule, which I tend to have. I can get distracted into a project for days or even, a week or two. And if I don't have the time to be able to schedule every day, I can schedule a couple days out and then go back in the next day or the next 2 days later and say, okay, I can schedule more. Repinning from Pinterest is one of my favorite benefits of Tailwind. So the strategy that we teach in our course is that you need to post a combination of pins to help build data for Tailwind and yourself and to help boost your views. So ultimately you want engagement, but until you start to fine-tune that data, you need views. And if you want to get views, you need to have kind of a combination. Pinterest likes to see you engaging on Pinterest, so that's called repinning, right? And that's one of the methods. And that method in and of itself is one that has been extremely manual until Tailwind. So if you go into Pinterest and let's say you find a pin, you're like, oh, hey, I'm going to share this to one of my boards. Historically, if you were to do that, you could not schedule it. And as far as I can find, the only way to queue this up and schedule is through Tailwind. And this feature is wonderful because, like, if you want to share from one board into another, instead of doing it immediately, you can go, hey, I'm going to share this into, say, a group board, right? I'm going to share it into a group board at 5 o'clock on Friday. You can say specifically that, or you can say, hey, you know what? I have 14 group boards that I want to go into. I don't want to pin into every single one of them at the same time because that's silly. I want to reach more people. So instead, I'm going to, pin into each one of those every 2 hours. I'm going to put a pin in one of those. And that's that feature, so you get to repin the same pin over and over again into the different boards. Like if it's your pin, for example, you get some pretty good reach on that. But being able to repin it from the Pinterest ecosystem, so if you find like a really good blog post pin and you're like, oh, hey, I want to get this in my queue, you can schedule it to repin. And as far as I know, you can't do that without Tailwind. So that feature alone is really nice because that helps you do that combination of repinning, pinning from sites, and then doing custom pins, which you can already manually do scheduling for custom pins, which is kind of a pain. And you can also I think you can also schedule it if you're pinning it from a site. But regardless, you typically cannot repin as a schedule without Tailwind. So that's a really neat feature. Tailwind Tribes. So you also get access to something called Tribes. This is a little bit more of a recent addition from Tailwind. And in fact, I think when I first started, they were still calling it beta. It may not be called beta now, but it's only been a couple months since I started. But it's new basically. And it's sort of similar to a like-for-like concept. If you've ever seen those sites, you would go in and you would like stuff to get credits to have other people like your stuff. But the problem with the like-for-like is that it's completely against the terms of service because you're not doing it based on legitimate trying to group content together. In fact, 90% of the stuff that got on there was like total porn stuff, and it was disgusting and it was horrible. And like I said, none of the sites support that or like it, including Pinterest. So what's nice about this is while it's the same similar concept, the difference is that you get to choose the pins you want to share. So tribes exist on Tailwind, not on Pinterest. So you would submit your pin to a tribe that you've joined. So you and others are all part of this tribe, and you all submit your pins to it. Now, when you submit your pin, other members that have similar niches can now share your pin into their boards. So something to keep in mind on that, and I'll talk about this in a second with group boards, is that the reach for individual boards is much better than group boards. So tribes are better than groups, but you still want both. And we'll talk about group boards in a minute. But when so if you submit a pin, other people can repin to their boards and help you with your reach. And you can do the same as well. And I actually find that when I go into tribes and I find some that are pretty popular, it helps my reach significantly because now I'm sharing that into my boards and people are finding my boards because of that. And they're finding me, right? So there's a lot of benefits to this, and we talk a lot more of this in our course. Now you get access to 5 tribes for free with Tailwind. When you when you purchase Tailwind, it's 5 tribes for free. And then you get 30 submissions a month. And I talk about pin math and everything in the course. So if you haven't joined our Pinterest Marketing with Pinterest course, I recommend you do that. But for those of you looking for access to more tribes, there are upgrade options. So Pinterest group boards. Now group boards live on Pinterest. So these are not necessarily part of Tailwind. And I'll tell you how Tailwind fits in a minute. But while tribes let each tribe member select pins and place them on their boards, group boards are actually boards with multiple people contributing to the board. Now, Pinterest announced in early 2018 that group boards have less reach than individual boards. That was something they changed in their algorithm. But using group boards still gives you extra exposure because people that are following boards still are going to see pins submitted to that board. They may not see it as often, and you may not get as good of a reach on a group board, but it still gives you that extra exposure. So it's definitely worth it. Now, Tailwind helps you schedule and distribute content into group boards in an effective way. So that helps you explode the reach of your pins. So, I mentioned this a little while ago that if you use your board lists, and let's say you have 14 group boards that you're a part of, you can use Tailwind to schedule every 2 hours, every 4 hours, once a day, whatever it is. You can submit that one pin into each group board, so that way it's not going out all at once or at the time that you log in. So that's a huge benefit for using Tailwind for group boards. And of course, if you're like, oh, hey, I don't know how to get into group boards or anything else, we talk about that in our course. So I do recommend that you do that. So speaking of our course, you should claim your access to the Marketing with Pinterest course while you can. So if you're new to Pinterest marketing or have tried Pinterest marketing without much luck, we have a special course to help you out. These are some of the topics inside: how Pinterest works, Pinterest for business, Pinterest keyword research, which is phenomenal. By the way, if I don't say so myself, I kind of made it, so I might be a little biased, but I really think it's very helpful. The feedback I've received on that is exceptional. People love that. How to get followers. Now, this one's a little bit iffy, and we talk about some easy ways and some hard ways, and you just have to decide the best way for you. Vertical video pins. Nobody's talking about video pins in the first place, but let alone vertical video pins. We're going to talk about vertical video pins, and that will definitely be something that you'll be on the cutting edge of. Then, of course, multiply your efforts with Tailwind. We have an entire section with multiple videos dedicated to using Tailwind alone. Now, if you're like, hey, I don't want to use Tailwind, but I want to do it all by myself, there's plenty of information in this course to help you with that. But you will definitely multiply your efforts when you use Tailwind, and we will have strategy and examples galore for you. Then we also have a section on Pinterest monetization methods. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say loosely, there's other people that I know of that sell just a Pinterest monetization method, and usually it's one method, not as many as we're going to talk about. They sell just the one method for $997 just to get access to that information. That's $1,000 to get access to that information. You get that included in our course. The link to the course is below this video. Check it out. Depending on when you're watching this video, we have promotional options available. We may even be offering it for free for a limited time. So check that out. And if you have any questions, please reach out. There will be links below this video, whether you're on our site or on YouTube, either one. And of course, you can always hop over into the Facebook group as well if you're interested. Thanks, and I'll see you guys on the other side.